Greetings, everybody. I'd like to thank you all for participating in this webinar today. We're going to follow if you all saw the flyer, we're going to follow the order of the presenters that were presented on the flyer. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Masters Builders before I get started. Masters Builders is a lodge that got started not too long ago. I'm the workshop master there. We had a few workshop masters in the past, and this job creation and financial empowerment program was an idea presented to the lodge by Brother Amo Dodd under the leadership of our past master, Daryl Joyner. And, our lodge, we focus on, empowering the community and doing things to help the community improve as we help ourselves improve as men. And some of the things we do, we have a mentorship program at Kennedy Middle School. We participated in with Rockford School District 205 to help with a scholarship program that encourages educators from 205 to go to Rockford College and receive a degree in education, so they may go on and come to become teachers and come back to the Rockford community. We also have a uniform program over at Haskell Elementary School. So we're doing things to try to help the community and improve. And this financial empowerment workshop and job creation workshop is one of the other things that we want to do to help improve the community in Rockford, Illinois, and Winnebago County. Our first presenter would be Andre Ashmore, and I'm gonna read a biography from him. Andre B. Ashmore currently serves as the Deputy Bureau Chief of Economic Development for the Cook County government, where he oversees the operation of a bureau that consists of 4 separate departments. Prior to Cook County, Andre served in several senior level staff positions in Illinois state government, including statewide director of local government affairs in the governor's office and deputy secretary of transportation at the Illinois Department of Transportation. In addition to his extensive public sector practitioner career, Andre served as a village trustee from 2001 to 2008 and as a village president / mayor from 2008 to 2017 in Matteson, Illinois, in the south suburbs. During his tenure in Matteson, several hundred new homes were constructed, and Andre oversaw a relatively positive period where several major developments were added to the village, including the construction of a 77,000 square foot recreation center. Andre has been involved in politics in Chicago, Cook County, and Illinois since he was 14. Finally, Andre has a very extensive academic career as a university professor. Andre has served as an adjunct professor of public administrations at a governor's state university since 2005, and as an adjunct professor of public policy at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign since 2012. Andre credits his success to his parents, Reverend and Mrs. Ashmore, his children, Andre Jr. and Taylor, and his faith in God. Andre resides in the South Loop and swims almost every day and reads 15 to 20 books a year. Go ahead, Andre Ashmore.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you all this afternoon. I really do appreciate the invitation. Elmo and Mr. Dowd and I go way back for many years, worked together in Illinois state government, and also along that journey became very, very good friends. But it's always great to share and certainly always glad to share any knowledge that I might have to, help someone that's looking to, go into business. And I think these types of opportunities, even in the times that we live now, are very, very important. So I want to commend you. I want to commend you and the lodge, Mr. Neighbors, on putting this on. I think it's a very, 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 very useful tool. The things that I was asked to go over for this were just to have a brief discussion about some of the general types of business entities. I had sent my slides. I didn't know if you were going to be able to show those or not. Do you have those?
I had them for you to present. I didn't have them up for myself to present. I don't have them.
Okay. Well, I can just talk from them. That's fine, because they can certainly be provided to the participants when we're done, and to basically be used as a guide the way I had them set up. So I mean,
No
I don't know if
problem.
you've looked at them, but they're actually a pretty easy read. So it'll be a good reference for someone. So we just jump right in. The very first entity, and probably the most common entity that we hear about, is a sole proprietorship. From a liability standpoint, under a sole proprietorship, the owner is personally liable for business debts, but this also has the same advantages as a regular limited liability company, or we also know that as an LLC, and I'm going to talk about those in a few minutes. As far as taxation, under a sole proprietorship, the owner would report the profit or loss on his or her own personal tax returns. They certainly can. Formation is very simple, very inexpensive to create and to operate. There generally is no filing necessary. There could be some local ordinances that might require a particular type of business to, register with the city or some other, maybe with the county, depending on where it's located. But for the most part, it's pretty simple, pretty inexpensive, for someone to actually just start up, has a business idea and they decide to start up a sole proprietorship. As far as maintenance, there's really no formal corporate maintenance required under this particular type of ownership. So that makes it a lot easier for it to operate. Can someone still decide, even though it's a sole proprietorship, if they decide to make it a sole proprietorship, that's the entity that they choose, they certainly can still have papers and have bylaws and other things drawn up. It's not necessarily a requirement in most areas, but it's probably something that is recommended. And I'm going to talk about that piece a little bit more at the end, in terms of, in general, how a person really wants to approach, once they've made a decision to form a particular type of ownership, start up a new business and designate it as under a particular type of ownership that we're going to discuss today. Some of the steps that they may want to take just to ensure that they're crossing their T's and dotting their I's. The next one that we discuss is what we know as a general partnership, or just a partnership. A partnership, generally, the owners or partners, in this case, as it were, can be, two or more, obviously. It's no limited amount. Usually at least two, obviously, to make it a partnership, are personally liable for the business debts. That can vary if you get into a limited liability partnership, which I talk a little bit about kind of more towards the end as well. But under just a general partnership, the owners are going to be personally liable for any business debts. As far as taxation, they can choose to report profit, loss, things of that nature on their own personal tax returns. As far as formation is concerned, again, relatively simple and inexpensive to create and operate. In most cases, there's not going to be any filing necessary. And when we say any filing necessary, that would be, and again, this is could vary from state to state. It's going to depend on the state that the entity is going to be located in, because there could be, in other words, I don't want to make it sound like that's just a blanket statement for all 50 states. That may not be the case. There may be a requirement that there is some filing necessary, but for the most part, we're talking about there not normally being some formal, like, some corporate, like, or not corporate, but some formal bylaws and things of that nature must be filed with the state. But I would advise anyone, and I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end, in terms of when you're in the formation process, those are the types of things that you want to cover with a licensed attorney who, should be guiding you through this process. As far as maintenance, general partners can raise cash without really involving in outside investors. You certainly could, but it's not necessary. It's not a corporation, so you're not selling shares and things like that. Everything that you're putting in is staying within the actual partnership, and so they don't necessarily have to involve outside investors as well, because there generally aren't any in a partnership, in the management of the business. So in other words, the partners are going to be the ones that decide how the business is actually going to be operated. So next one that we cover is corporation. A lot different than the first two that we discussed. And keep in mind, I'm giving you a very basic kind of a business entities 101, so to speak. But this is what I'm covering, or at least attempting to cover here, is at least the crux of the major components of what it takes to at least get something like this off the ground. As far as liability is concerned, under a corporation, the owners generally will have some limited personal liability for debts of the business. A lot of that's going to depend on how it's set up, what it says in the bylaws, which we talk about in a second, and that type thing. But overall, there could be some personal liability for business debts depending on how the entity is set up. Owners can split, corporate profit among the owners, and certainly among the within the corporation, generally paying a lower overall tax rate than you would maybe on a personal level. And again, that's going to vary depending on, where you're at. It's also going to vary on the current economy of the United States in terms of where our, what the current corporate tax rate is at that time. But it is a separate taxable entity. So it's not something that any one of the owners is going to need to, take personal liability on their own taxes for profits and losses and things of that nature. The taxes of the corporation are going to be filed separately under the name of the corporation. As far as formation, it can have an unlimited number of shareholders. It tends to be more expensive to create than partnerships or sole proprietorships. One reason that is because in this particular case, you definitely are going to want to engage the services of an attorney, and you probably should have someone, at least one attorney, on your board of directors and things like that, depending on how it's going to be, or depending on how your corporation is going to be organized, because you're going to want to be able to seek ongoing legal advice as you move along. Because now, as a corporation, that level of liability, and we won't get into that real deep in terms of how a corporation can be liable, for product liability, for accidents, for all sorts of other things that can arise, that while the individual owners may not be necessarily liable for, but the corporation itself will be, which can have obviously an effect on those owners if that's their bread and butter, so to speak, and that's how they're making a living themselves is based off this corporation. So even though it may not have a direct effect on them, it can have an indirect one as well. But certainly going to be this is all going to be spelled out in the bylaws and articles of incorporation that are going to be filed with, in most cases, and particularly in the case of the state of Illinois, with the Secretary of State's office, in order for it to be even recognized as a corporation in Illinois. As far as maintenance goes, shares of stock can be sold to raise capital. Also, regular stockholder meetings, usually at least annually, if not more frequently, are required for it to maintain the corporate status. Can't just call it a corporation, can't just put it in the bylaws and file it with the Secretary of State's office. There are some things that actually have to take place throughout the year, throughout the calendar year or the fiscal year, to continue to shore up the status as a corporation. And the last one that I'm going to discuss is one that we hear a lot about these days. It's very popular in a limited liability company. So it kind of combines a corporation's liability protection and but also offers kind of a pass-through tax structure of really what is really more like a partnership. And it can also be called a limited liability partnership as well, where now the only difference there, it would be just involve, 2 or more people, as opposed to just in the case of, many of them, it's just one person, which will be very similar to a sole proprietorship, but it actually does shift, and this is all going to be spelled out, and I'll talk about this in a minute. It's going to shift some of that liability that might exist under a normal partnership. It's going to shift it and really give it much more like that of protection that a corporation would have. Now, as far as taxation is concerned, the IRS rules actually do now allow limited liability companies to kind of choose between being taxed as a partnership or a corporation. As far as formation, again, can be more expensive to create than a partnership or a sole proprietorship, because for sure, again, in this case, like the corporation, you're going to want to definitely hire a licensed attorney to draw up your bylaws, your articles of, they may not be called articles of incorporation, but you're going to definitely want to have them draw up all of the governing documents, because you want this spelled out, because should something happen down the road, whether it's from a liability standpoint or to limit your liability, as it were, or even when you decide to dissolve it, should you reach that point, that type of thing, all those things are going to be spelled out in these articles of incorporation or articles of, that create this limited liability company in this case. Maintenance here, you can sell, you can certainly sell interest, you can sell interest, member interest to different individuals per company policy. More often than not, your average limited liability company is usually just one person. More often than not, it's just one individual, which makes it much easier to maintain than a corporation. There's no board of directors. There's no board of, any kind of governing body. There are no necessarily annual meetings required and that type thing. But what I will say about all these, and I've kind of said this throughout this brief presentation, is as simple as they all may sound, particularly the sole proprietorship as well as the general partnership, as simple as they may sound or look on paper to create. My advice in any one of these cases, including the sole proprietorship, I would advise anyone that's very serious, that really wants to go into business and really wants to make sure that they are protected, to hire a licensed attorney to help you walk through that process. I'm not saying that to peddle, to bump up attorney fees for any attorney or anything like that. But it's a matter of really protecting yourself or protecting yourselves in the case of a partnership or a corporation, should something go awry. And the reason I also say that, it's like anything else to use, as bad of an example as it is, I don't necessarily like to use it, but it's a pretty good example. More often than not, most marriages start off very well. But unfortunately, as we all know, sometimes things can go south. And you want to have in writing what's going to happen if and when, hopefully it won't, but if and when it goes south. Or, me and Tim and I are best friends. We go into business together with the best of intentions. We get into business, things are going well, and all of a sudden there's a big downturn in the economy. We start losing money or whatever. Things start to go south, and then it's like, okay, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. Maybe we're not in agreement with how we're going to do that. Well, if we make sure and dot our I's and cross our T's up front by having all this in writing, like we would anything else, having all this in writing and have it written down, so that everybody knows, everybody's on the same page. And that is why for all four of these entities that I discussed and any other ones that might be out there, because there are others, these are the four most common ones that we hear about and that we probably have, and I don't know all the stats on that, but these are probably bar none the most common ones. And that is why I definitely, at the end of the day, would advise, making sure that, you're having a licensed attorney look over and put together whichever type of entity it is that you would choose for your future business. And that would conclude my presentation. Yes.
All right, so we had a question from Cedric Lewis. He said, is there a means to forecast the tax implications from having property development management?
Okay, to having property, can you repeat that last part?
Is there a means to forecast the tax implications from having property development / management?
Property development, is that the type of business it is?
Let me allow him to ask the question.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Brother Lewis.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
So the purpose of the question is those who are investors.
Okay.
How can we get in the ball game? I mean, in the ballpark, it's not going to be an exact science.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How do we forecast what our tax benefit from investing in property that's not our primary property? How do we forecast what that's going to look like?
Right. I think a lot of that is going to depend on obviously it's going to depend on the property, the type of property, the location of the property, the purpose of it. That would be something that I would, before I invested, I would basically consult a tax attorney on. That would be my advice on that, because that's going to vary, obviously, from entity to entity. Is going to vary from city to city and place to place. So to ensure that you're getting the best and most current and up-to-date advice based on that particular, subject or that particular property that you've got your eye on or thinking of investing in, that would be my advice. As far as being able to forecast it, that I'm not aware of, but I'm certain that an experienced tax attorney that deals with that type of stuff every day would be able to guide you down that road. Yep.
And if you tune in next week at our next presentation, we have a presenter that's going to go into that part and into that question even further. Next, we have on our flyer, we had, no, I'm gonna mess this name up, Mike Mastronati. but he wasn't able to attend, but he had a partner that's still with us, Edward Caceres, both of the SBDC consultant. And I'm gonna read Edward's bio. Edward Caceres is an experienced business advisor who enjoys working with entrepreneurs and startup companies. Edward is part of a trusted team of advisors assisting many area businesses through the established network and support of the Small Business Development Center. In 2009, Edward graduated from Rockford College with a Masters of Business Administration and is a strong advocate for the use of solar energy for more sustainable business practices. Edward is a native of Lima, Peru, and is fluent in English and Spanish, enjoys traveling, flying his drones, and spending time with his family. Go ahead, Edward.
Hello, thank you very much for having me, Tim. Let me share with you guys my screen, so in that way we can go through our presentation. Tim, can you enable me to use, you have to allow me to share my screen. Yes, because I'm trying to say, and there is host disabled participant screen sharing, so there is an option that allows me to share screens. In the meanwhile, let me tell you a little bit about the SBDC. The SBDC is a state and federal funding organization that basically support entrepreneurs in every stage of them. So people that are planning to start their own business plan, oh, perfect. You know, also, no, it's not allowing me yet. So basically what we are doing is support the small businesses, people that are working basically in developing a business plan in the early stage of their idea, or also we can work with people that is already in business but are facing different challenges, basically, you know, like a business growth, financial issues, digital marketing challenges, for say just a few examples. Now, the SBDC, in order to achieve these goals, made some important partnerships with the Small Business Administration, with the DCO, with the Rockford Chamber of Commerce, who is our host. And also we work closely with another educational institutions like the NIU and the Rockford Public Library. The city of Rockford is playing an important role in the way that we achieve our goals, because we are working as a team in order to support our entrepreneur community. So let me try. Oh, perfect, I can do it. Thank you very much, Tim. Okay, so let's start talking about something really important that I'm always approach with my clients before anything. That is, start talking about a self-evaluation to see if you are ready to start a business, or probably you need to assemble a team in order to achieve your goals. Sometimes we got all the energy, all the good ideas, but sometimes we need to assemble a team in order to achieve our goals. You know, so the reasons why you want to start your business may vary. You want to be your own boss because probably you don't like the place that you are working actually. You want some financial independence and don't rely in a paycheck. You want some kind of freedom to, you know, develop yourself. Probably you feel that you got a glass ceiling in your organization and you feel that it's the right time to start your own business. So the reasons may vary, it depends on every reality, but that leads us to the questions that you have to start asking yourself, you know, before you start doing even your business plan is, do you have the personality, you know, that allow you to enjoy what business ownership means? When we talk about businesses, people immediately start thinking about just in the bright side of being an entrepreneur, but nobody tell you or nobody think about in what you have to do in order to achieve these goals. Of course, sometimes people don't think that now they are going to spend less time with their families because now they have a business. So sometimes they don't calculate, you know, financially speaking, the impact of this activity in their lives. So it's really important that you start asking yourself if you are ready to start this journey. Do you enjoy competition? You don't take personally the things, because guess what? Start a business is a really competitive activity, because you are not employee of someone. You now are the boss. Now you are the person that is going to basically be responsible to succeed or fail in your organization and everyone with you. So you have to understand the responsibility. Also, and this is, I believe, the two most important features that an entrepreneur must have, that is that you must be perseverant and have a strong self-discipline. Because if you think about it, when you start a business, you are going to face a lot of challenges, okay? And if you don't have the perseverance, that help you to keep pushing, probably you are going to quit. So entrepreneur is someone that is a very perseverant person, but in a good way. I'm not talking about a stubborn guy. I'm talking about someone that really know what they want and fight for what they want. So that is really important. And the self-discipline is because you are going to face a lot of sacrifice in the journey, at least at the very beginning when you are building up, you are in the groundbreaking process of your business. It's really important to get that. And finally, you have the ability to planning, because you can avoid a lot of issues if you start planning, and foresee any potential issue that your business idea could face. Which leads us to understand also if your idea is a good idea or not. Sometimes, and it's hard, I can tell you, because it's something that happens not very often in my field, is that sometimes when you start talking with a client, you realize that probably he's a little bit out of touch about the reality of that business activity, for example. So you need to start thinking if you are going to address a need with your product or service before even start. Another thing is that you have to start thinking, and if you think seriously about this, it's like your product is something that is already existing in the market, or is something that is already in the market and you are going to face a strong competition. Sometimes we love our ideas, but we have to be realistic. So all this kind of self-evaluation about you personally and your project idea are really important before even start this process. Also, you have to start taking in consideration if you are ready. I'm not talking just only financially speaking, ready to start a business. Do you have, the capital to start your business? Because that is the biggest challenge for small entrepreneurs, get access to capital for their projects. There are any factors that make the financing hard to obtain. Probably is a kind of product that demands a lot of regulation from the government. There is any potential damage to the environment. For example, I got the opportunity to work in California for 2 years for the solar industry. And I know that, for example, banks like Wells Fargo and Chase require to their potential clients, if they're applying for a loan, present some kind of environmental study to see if there is going to be any impact of their activity in the environment. So you have to start evaluating all these things. So probably you are using a technology that is going to, is in their way out. So there is many things that you have to start thinking, from different angles before starting your business. There is any, prohibition or zoning licensing issue. For example, you can open a liquor store next to a school. I mean, there is some kind of regulations that you must be aware, in this process. Another, and probably is the most complex part, before you start your business, is how you are going to fund basically your business. You got, financially speaking, you are ready, you got some savings, or you got maybe some home equity. You got some friends, some family that maybe can provide you with some support for your business. Are you ready to apply for a loan? And when I say ready to apply for a business loan, that means that you have to get a business plan done, you got a really good credit score, you got a really good debt-income ratio. I mean, all this information are valuable information that bankers or any lender are going to check on you before provide you with any funding. So do you have, in this case, probably your idea is going to be funded for a private or angel investors, as we call them, that are people that are looking for opportunities to, you know, to get a better return for their investment, and are willing to spend in young entrepreneurs with a really good ideas that, of course, prove through a business plan that there is going to be a return for their investment. You know, you are going to work with venture capitals. I mean, there are many options out there that you can use to start funding your business, even grants. But about grants, especially in these times, I just want to clarify that sometimes happened in the past that people came to me and say, hey, you know what, I want to start a business because I hear about this free money that the government is giving away, and I just want to take that, pay my debts, fix my credit, and with the remaining start my business. I'm sorry, but grants doesn't work in that way. There are a lot of misinformation. That's why these kind of webinars are really important, because it's the way that we can deliver to the community reliable information from reliable sources. So in that way, they are going to get the right information to make the right decisions before they start their business. And finally, you can also use crowdfunding that is very popular among millennials and Generation Z for the creation of new products. Remember, 10, 20 years ago, we didn't have 3D printers. We didn't have the advancing artificial intelligence that we have now. So the new ideas and new products are originals in the way that you don't need all the infrastructure that you need before, thanks to the new technologies that we have. And crowdfunding becoming a kind of unbelievable source of opportunities for young entrepreneurs. Another important thing that already Andre talked about is decide about the legal entities, in special for two main reasons. Of course, liability, and the second for tax reasons, you know. But he already explained about that, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. But it's really important to, you know, help the people understand how important is decide the right legal entity for your business. And of course, make an agreement to avoid problems later. And finally, you know, after all these things, you have to, once you got all these questions answered, you put all your ideas together, it's time to start making your business plan. Your business plan is really important for two main reasons. The first one is because it's going to be your playbook. It's going to allow you to explain basically your idea to people that probably doesn't have the same business or educational background to you, but since you got the opportunity to explain it, you know, it's going to allow you to get opportunities with your business. It's going to allow you to also explain if you are going to provide goods and services or just one or other. I mean, it depends, but this is the document that is going to allow, you know, the people understand your business idea, how your market works, you know, what are the requirements of your market. You know, what kind of marketing plan do you have? You are going to work with traditional social media, or you are going to start looking for another new options that came out thanks to these new technologies in the market right now? How you are going to manage your HR issues? How you are going to manage the financial part of your business? You are going to use a software like a QuickBooks. Believe it or not, start a business is a complex entity. So you need to put together all the things in order to avoid forgot something, or, you know, being unclear with people that probably is looking to work with you, but without a clear explanation about your project, you can lose opportunities. So without all the things, when you are complete all these things, one of the most important things that you have to start thinking is, okay, I'm ready to start this business. You can start making with your checklist, financially speaking. I got all the information. I got my business plan. Now I went to the city. For example, in the city of Rockford, we got this wonderful program that is Business First, that allow the people basically in our city in Rockford to came. You know, they set up an appointment. They got 30 minutes to pitch us about their project. In that room is going to be people from the city of Rockford, license and permits, the health department, the water reclamation. And after listen to your pitch, they are going to give you the final piece of advice that you need. So with that, with all the things done, it's time to start thinking finally in, you know, start basically filing for your business. You know, this is a quick review. The first step, of course, is obtain your federal employee number. If you decide to be a LLC, or it depends what kind of business, you have to make it in with the state of Illinois also. There is a cost. For example, in the case of the LLCs, is $150. The next step is register, you know, your business in the Department of Revenue. That is for free. We highly recommend to the business that they obtain their DUNS number. That is like the credit score for businesses. Like for us is you know, a TransUnion for businesses is the DUNS number. And finally, and it's another recommendation, we always say that if you are a small business owner, try to you know, file your information in the SAMS.gov that allow you to get option to work with the government. That is really, really important for small businesses that are looking to expand their operations or even grow. You know, finally, I just want to make a quick summary about how important it is to start making your business plan before anything, because that is going to show you if you are ready. It's going to show you if you can make it by yourself or you need a team to make it. And this is really important because sometimes, and I got a few clients that are partners for almost 25 years. And once I asked them, which one was the secret? I mean, how you can be together for almost 25 years? And he told me, if, at that time I was single, he asked me if I was married, and I say, no. Okay, a partnership is like a marriage, basically. You know, you are going to get good times, bad times, you're going to get discussions, you are going to get, you know, unreached achievements. So it's really important that you think if you can start your business by yourself or you need to assemble a team. I got clients that for several years work, for example, for the food industry. Now they got a great idea, you know, and they know that there are out there something called applications. So they want to get an application and feed all this application with their knowledge. But sometimes, you know, an app developer could charge you between $50,000, $60,000 to make things that probably is all your budget to start your business. So in these cases, sometimes a partnership is highly recommended. It's much better to make $1 million per year in revenue to make $0 and keep a good idea, you know, hiding from the light. So, and also, I just want to share this with everyone in the presentation. Every SBDC that we got to, a few in Chicago and in the whole Illinois, offer this software that is GrowWheel. GrowWheel is a software that allows us to make the business plan really quick. It's really friendly for our clients. But the most important thing is that we are working virtually in the way that every time that they work remotely, feeding their information in their business plan in GrowWheel, I got an alert that allow me to see in real time how they are doing and help me to guide them in order to avoid wasting of time in, you know, in bad ideas or probably something that need to be corrected. So every SBDC out there is able to help every entrepreneur, you know, to make their dreams come true. And the business plan, always repeat that, is the most important part. Even if you got everything in your mind, at some point you need to explain that. At some point you need to remember how you designed at the very beginning your business. And basically a business plan is a kind of life document that allow you to keep the record of your business journey. This is basically the everything that I got for you guys. We are more in the SBDC like a facilitators that help entrepreneurs to connect the dots and let it, let them grow their business in any way possible that our network have, the possibilities to do for them. So that will be all. Any question?
We don't have any questions in the question and answer session, so we'll move on to our next presenter. Thank you very much. That was a wonderful presentation. Our next presenter is Maurice Redd.
Hello there.
All right. I'm gonna read his bio for you all. All right, so I'm gonna read Maurice's bio. Maurice founded the Redd Insurance Group in 2017 after spending time as a financial advisor for Morgan Stanley and then becoming an independent insurance agent. Maurice brings a unique background to the financial insurance field as he was an educator and non-profit executive in his earlier professional career. From his experience in education and working in various community organizations, he saw there was a big gap in financial education in our society. This drove him to move into the financial insurance field to be an advisor who not only recommends the most appropriate product for his clients, but also educating them on understanding the impacts of financial decisions. Maurice is very active in the community and serves on the board for Rockford Promise and Next Rockford. He also serves on the City of Rockford Board of Zoning and Liquor and Tobacco Commission. Maurice has 3 daughters, Eloise, Sophia, and Brooklyn, and regularly volunteers in their classes and chaperones field trips. In his spare time, he loves to travel and has been to 41 states, Canada, Mexico, and Europe. Here you have Maurice.
All right, I didn't know if you read all that. So thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of the activities today. And I am very happy to be here today. So I want to also have a presentation. I want to see if I can share my screen here. So let me see if I can get this set up here for us. Can you guys see my screen now? You can, yes? Okay, let's get people on mute there. So I was hoping, yeah, I'm sure people who are part of the call can chime in or not, but as I said, my education background, I like to kind of get people involved and ask questions of the audience. So I'm not sure if people have the capabilities or not to be a part of this, but yeah, so we're talking a little bit about business risk management. And the first question that I usually start off with is, what exactly is risk? Kind of a term that gets thrown around, or risk management gets turned, maybe a term you've heard of before, but most people don't actually stop and think about what is risk and what is it, why is it important for us to kind of manage that in our personal and professional lives. And again, I'm not sure if people are able to speak in or not, but basically in an insurance sense, risk is just basically the chance of something bad happening, right? So in our personal life, think about it, if you get in the car every day, drive around, there's risk of something happening that can be bad, right? That's why we buy auto insurance, because we want to protect ourselves from risk happening. In a business sense, it's also kind of obviously there's many types of things that could happen in your business as well, depending on the business you're in. See if I can put this on slideshow, okay. You guys can see this or not. Is that showing up or not? I can't tell. All right. Yeah, so risk management, I'm going to talk about kind of 4 basic topics. What is risk management? give you 3 steps for implementing these risk management plan for your business, looking at how to acquire the right types of insurance, and then also how do you monitor and adapt as your business changes and grows throughout the years. So again, what is risk management? So it is, risk is an inherent part of our life. It's an inherent part of your business world. You're always going to have things that will be possible. Bad things could happen. You could have accidents. You could have, incidents happening with your employees. Again, depending on the business you're in, it's going to have a big impact on how you look at those things. And most of us think about insurance as ways of protecting us from bad things happening in our business life. But we can't really eliminate all the risk in the world, right? So I just talk about, myself, for example. I have a small office here over on East State Street, and I have some equipment here, some computer stuff, some printing stuff, some stuff from my office. I don't have a lot of valuable things per se. So I have a lock and key on my business. So that's kind of to prevent, obviously, the risk of somebody robbing or theft happening from my business. But I could spend a lot more on that, right? I could have a very high-tech security system that has cameras outside. It could have like a special 6-digit combination to get inside the building. I could have a fingerprints security system to walk into certain parts of the building and things of that nature. But that would be very expensive, right? Same thing for your home. You could have a very high-tech, expensive security system for your home, but how much is that going to cost you, and what do you have to protect? So for me, in my example, in my business, small office, not a ton of things here. Most of my business, the insurance world is we're doing a lot of stuff online. I have documents and things of that nature, but nothing of really real value to the average person out there. So for me to spend, $10,000 a month on a security system when I have about $10,000 worth of equipment in my office doesn't really make sense. So you have to figure out kind of that balance of like, okay, what do I have that is important to me, that's valuable to me to protect that, have a peace of mind of that. But then also, a business should be profitable, right? So you can't just spend all your money on certain things that may happen once in a million years. You have to kind of balance that out. So that's kind of really part of managing your risk, is understanding that you can't control everything, right? So that's kind of where things happen in life that we can't control. So we have to manage the things we can, or be more observant of things we can control, and then understand that some things we just can't control. An employee is going to go out there and do something. If they're driving, you have a vehicle for your company, an employee's out there driving, they could get in an accident because it's not everything their fault. They hit the ice, they could have, it's bad weather, things are going to happen that we can't control. But also risk management is more than just protecting yourself, more than just using more than insurance to protect yourself. So people think, well, insurance is my protection, right? That's where I manage my risk, is by buying insurance. But there's also things you can do proactively more than just buy insurance. All right, so we also have, identifying your risks. So again, some risks are common to most businesses that are out there, that things are going to be very similar, no matter what business you're in. You're going to have the same kind of risk. We all have, worry about property losses. We also worry about business interruption. And nowadays, things that are happening, in our world right now with COVID especially, people who never thought about business interruption happening is realizing that that's a possibility more and more. You have liability losses. So maybe something, you or an employee does something that causes you to maybe are liable for something that happened that hurt another business or caused damage to somebody else's property or something like that. So you have to kind of be worried about that. You have key person losses. So you have employees, you have staff in your business, and people obviously come and go, right? People change jobs, they move, their career changes, their life changes, other opportunities arise. So maybe somebody who's been part of your business for a long time, you've been counting on, and who's really kind of a key person for your business, leaves. Or maybe, situations that are happening now, maybe they get sick because of COVID and things of that nature. So somebody who maybe is very integral to your operations and your organization could be lost as well. Then also, again, injury is kind of in the same kind of same category. So it could be injury, it could be illness, it could be different things that could happen, accidents at work, where you could actually lose some things that are lose people who are very important to you. Again, these are identifying risks. So going out there to look at and doing a real in-depth analysis of your company, your organization, and seeing what kind of things are actually possible that could be things that we could lose that could cause us to lose things that are important to us. And a key part of this is really determining your company's vulnerability. So, I gave a little example here that, equation, I guess, vulnerability is equal to the probability of something happening. So what are the odds that something will happen plus the cost? So how much would that cost your company stand to lose as a result of something happening? So I gave the example before of, my office is saying that the probability of somebody, breaking into this office here, I think it's pretty low. We're on East State. I'm in an office complex, a lot of other offices around here, plenty of lighting, plenty of people coming and going all the time. So again, the probability, I think, of something happening is pretty low, I think, in my case. And so to spend, $10,000 a month on a security system doesn't really kind of match what the probability is. And again, the value of my property I have inside my business does not necessarily warrant me to spend that much, spend those kind of costs. Now for you, again, everybody can be different in your situation. So you may have very valuable equipment on your property. You may have, machinery. You may have vehicles. May have something that's, again, you may have money on your property, things of that nature, petty cash or things of that nature. Maybe you have to keep around your business. So you have to determine, what is the cost that's going to be if you lose those things, and how valuable is that to you? And then the probability. So where's your business located at? So is your business in an area that's an industrial area, or is it in a commercial area? Things of that nature. So understanding what the probability of things happening as your business, type of business that could be sought by people to want to rob things and take things from your business. You have valuable things that people know about the value of that, and for various reasons. You think about what was happening a few years ago when we had the last economic downturn. People were stealing like copper and things out of people's homes that were abandoned and things of that nature because it was, it had some value to it. So does your company produce things that might have value to, they might want to get hold of? You have to understand those kind of vulnerability and understanding, how you can judge where you're vulnerable at and how to assess that risk as well. You're also preparing for contingency plans. Yeah, so as I was saying before, it's more than just buying insurance for risk management. So how do you implement policies for your employee safety? What kind of things are you putting in place so people don't get into accidents? Maybe if you have people who are driving out about and delivering things for your company, maybe they're really focused. Okay, I really have to be get there fast and speedy and really make a good time for my boss, because maybe you're putting maybe say pressure on them, or maybe you just kind of have expectations that we need to get things done right away. And obviously time is money, so as a company business owner, you want to get things done on a very fast basis and as quick as possible. But then also, if people are, if they're driving a lot for you, if they're going to be driving on the roads and they're driving, around Chicago or Milwaukee or some kind of, high density areas, if they're really focused on speed, then chances are they're probably going to get in an accident or get a ticket or something like that at some point, because they're really kind of pushing the limits. So maybe you have policies in place to say, hey, we're going to be a great company, we're going to deliver great products, but we're going to follow the laws. And so we don't want you to go over 65 miles an hour because we don't want you to have accidents. We don't want you to do this and that. I think about in terms of driving history, my father was a truck driver. And, back in those days, they would he drove all over the country and told me stories about places he'd been to and driving in the middle of the nights. But now most trucking companies have policies that drivers can only drive a certain number of hours, right? Because they saw that drivers who drive tired end up getting in more accidents, having more, maybe tickets and things of that nature. So, people put security plans in place or safety plans in place to protect the employees. If employees get in accidents, and then they have, pay for their compensation as well for their health bills and medical bills and things of that nature. So you have to kind of balance it out in terms of saying, okay, how do we put policies in place that's going to make our employees safe, and also for the bottom line of our company, keep it from losing money unexpectedly. Again, the idea here, as I told before, about installing security, So again, looking at your company and understanding that, you know, maybe you are a risk, or people maybe have some things that, that you have valuable things on your property. You think about what kind of employee population do you have? Do you have a employee population that comes and goes, or maybe it's kind of more transient? So maybe you have people who maybe stay with you for 6 months or to a year. Maybe the work is kind of hard and difficult, so they don't stick around. So after 5 years, maybe you got, you know, 10, 20 people who used to work for your company out there. So maybe they know your security protocol. They know how to get in on your building. So you have to look at, do we change our locks? Do we change our security measures and things of that nature to guard against losses and things of that nature? Another thing to think about here is avoiding transactions with, I say, you know, desperate or dubious potential customers. So I serve on the you know, city zoning board and liquor and tobacco commission, and we have people coming in who are starting businesses a lot, and they have the best ideas and best plans, and they, I guess many of you may have some great ideas as well. But think about if you're a vendor or you're providing a service or product to somebody who's just starting on a business. Would you, like, you know, give them a year's worth of credit up front and provide them all the materials that they may want to buy from you without getting them some kind of payment up front, right? So you maybe want to avoid kind of the people who are desperate or people who are having tough times. You got maybe have a pay-as-you-go policy. You got to pay for whatever you're going to order from us and have it paid up front or have it paid right away, as opposed to kind of just giving out things because you think this person is going to do really well in their business, but you have to also think about, obviously, your bottom dollar, your bottom line as well, that perhaps this business may not succeed. It may not make it to be as successful as they want to be. And yeah, as we know, most businesses, you know, do not succeed in terms of small businesses. Also, looking at training high potential employees. Again, this gets into the idea of sort of that key person losses that we discussed before, and understanding that, yeah, if you maybe have some key people who have been a part of your organization, part of your company for a while, and you know that they're very valuable to you and they provide a great service and they would be hard to replace, then maybe you're thinking about somebody else who's coming up in the ranks, who's a newer employee or somebody you see some potential in. Maybe start training that person, giving them some ideas of what kind of roles and that their superiors are performing, so you can groom that person to be the next in line in case that person does leave or and they get a better offer, they are looking to start their own company at some point. So contingency planning is very important, again, if you think about risk management. All right. Now, again, you know, acquiring insurance is important for your company, for your business. And again, that's going to help you with a lot of risk management, but also in knowing and understanding the right type of insurance to acquire for your business. Again, depending on what you do, and again, I want to have a little more dialogue and understand what people are doing. But you know, there's general liability, which kind of covers a lot of things for a lot of companies. There's product liability. So, are you selling things, products to people, and they might say, hey, you know, your product, you know, was faulty, and then it caused an accident at our company or our business and things of that nature. So you have to be aware for kind of lawsuits, people kind of coming back at you saying, hey, your product didn't work or didn't do what it said it was going to do, and we're going to sue you, or we're going to want some kind of reimbursement for things that happened. Professional liability. I think I saw Dr. Oates on here. You know, as a dentist, or, you know, myself as an insurance agency, and we have to have errors and omissions insurance. So if we make a mistake, we have insurance to protect us and saying, okay, well, you made a professional mistake that caused somebody some damage or didn't cover them the way you thought it was, or the service wasn't provided the right way. You know, could be just, you know, a honest mistake that just things didn't happen the right way or something didn't go right. But we have professional liability out there for certain businesses as well. You know, commercial liability also sort of gets into that general liability conversation as well. And then Keyman Insurance, again, it gets into the idea of, we said there are key personnel. It can be also for the owners of the companies. We talked about earlier about some of the structures of companies. So maybe if you have multiple owners in a company, sometimes business partners will come together and say, we're going to buy Keyman Insurance on each other. So in case somebody becomes, you know, incapacitated, you know, right now it's a great example, again, COVID, somebody could get sick and be out of work and not be able to perform their duties for a long time. So you can have Keyman, it could be life insurance. So obviously if somebody dies, but also could be for disability insurance as well. for key personnel, saying that it will give you disability income, so the company can actually buy that, and the company actually owns the insurance on a person to protect themselves if that person was not able to be able to do their duties because of disability, or obviously in the case of unfortunate death that were to happen, then that money can come in to help the organization, help the company out. A lot of times that can actually help you kind of buy out the other person. So maybe if you have a business partnership with somebody and you know that there's 2 or 3 whatever partners who are part of the company, and they may not want somebody else to come in who inherits that share of the business. They may have a key man policy to say, okay, well, this person, dies, something happens to them, then they can use that money to actually buy out the other interests and other family and who may be interested or who have kind of inheritability interest in that possession of that business. And then also facility insurance is, again, your facility, your business, things of that nature, to protect yourselves in those situations. And wrapping up here, and the last part is just really to monitor and adapt as needed. So again, your company is growing, things are going to be changing a lot of times. Most people, most business owners obviously are focused on the day-to-day things, focused on growing your company, focused on and getting more business to happen. So, time goes by quickly. Think about it already. We're in July already, having a lot of conversations with folks like, where's the year going? It's been like a crazy year, right? There's so many things happening, and people have been dealing with a lot of different things in the business world. And people are thinking about things they didn't think about before. So probably most people were not thinking about business interruption insurance is really a thing they have to worry about. Like, why would my business, be stopped for any reason, right? There's a reason why people are always going to need. You think about restaurants and businesses that are out there. People would always want to have food to eat and things to have to eat and eat out and those kind of things. But now they're having to look at those types of situations that are happening because, again, this idea of risk is things we can't really foresee or predict happening. So you have to be prepared for those types of things. So people are going to be reviewing their policies and stuff nowadays to look at some things they didn't think about before, right? Including your owners, your investors, your key personnel is very important with when you're kind of creating a risk management plan and also reviewing it. So again, maybe if you have some machinery or equipment and somebody who's actually working on that machine every day and knows how the machinery works, you might want to call them in to be a part of this to understand what's happening. So maybe, again, I don't know, what everybody's situation is, but I'm just giving an example of you have some kind of equipment or machinery that supposedly only needs servicing every year, right? Because it's supposed to be, a fine tool machine, and whoever sold you the machinery says, well, this machine should be good. We'll come in once a year to kind of tune it up, the maintenance and those kind of things like that. But people who are working on the machine every day might say, well, hey, boss or whatever, that after about 6 months, this machine starts, not acting quite as good as it used to be. Maybe we need to actually look at getting this machine, tuned up or kind of having it serviced every 6 months as opposed to every year. So things that if you're not working in all parts of your business, you may not understand what people are actually dealing with on a day-to-day basis that could be affecting you on a larger scale in many ways you don't foresee. Also including your insurance company. So a lot of times insurance companies will provide you free advice in terms of taking a look at what's happening, what kind of risk you have on your organization, in your organization or on the property and those types of things, because we want to help you avoid having claims and having to, need to file claims. So we want to help you avoid those things. So insurance companies will actually come in out, maybe help you out with those kind of things as well. A lot of times, a good risk management plan is very important in raising capital. So we discussed that earlier as well. So if you're trying to get money from a bank or investors, they want to see that you actually are thinking about what kind of things could go wrong and are actually planning for that in advance and know your business basically, right? So if you know your business really well, you're going to know what kind of things that could pop up that could be problems, that could interrupt your business, that could cause, losses or could cause you to kind of maybe slow down on your production and things of that nature. So you want to basically make sure that you're actually looking at that in an active way and including that in your business planning so that people can actually understand, hey, this person actually knows their business really well and they actually are looking ahead for things that could go wrong in a way that is very prudent, that is kind of showing forethought and foresight into their company. And so that shows that you actually know your business really well because you actually can predict, as well as most of us can, that some things are going to happen, what things are more likely to go wrong than others, and actually put that into your planning process as well. So yeah, so that's kind of the presentation I put together for you tonight. And I will be open to taking any questions from anybody. I know I kind of talked a little bit here, so I wanted to get some time for questions as well.
So in the Q&A section, you have 2 questions if you'd like to look at in the Q&A section and answer those questions.
Okay. Looking, trying to get into the right.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read it.
Thank you. I'm looking around for here.
Okay, Ray Richmond asks, unfortunately, now knowing that business interruption claims aren't covered during the pandemic, has there been a direction in legislation for COVID-related medical/injury claims against the business? It's still unclear on liability in the workplace as an owner.
Yeah, that is a good question. I know that a lot of people, definitely were calling up and asking, are they covered? And this is kind of one of those, again, rare situations that I don't think many people didn't really foresee happening. And so, you consider it an act of God, you consider it a, natural disaster, what kind of category do you put it into? So really, there really hasn't been I think they're still kind of developing in that situation. I don't have a definitive answer on that right now, but I think that there's been discussions about those kind of things, but I don't think there's been any clear direction in terms of how legislation is going to play out. And maybe some other folks on the panel might know about this better, but I haven't heard anything in terms of any clear direction right now.
One more question from Chris Lewis. Many small businesses do not have a succession plan in place as an investor. How do you interact with owners who are looking for potential buyers of their business?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point saying that, again, many small business owners, obviously, they have a passion, an idea they want to kind of put out there. And they're just really thinking about all the positive aspects of, okay, I have a business, I'm going to make it happen, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to hustle, I'm going to get things going. But yeah, many people don't necessarily think about, okay, what's going to happen if I can't, work anymore, if I want to sell my business at some point. And so questions, at least in my capacity, we try to help people think about those things more, understand like who are maybe some of your competitors out there. Could be somebody who may be interested in buying your company out if you're ready to get out, or if you can't perform your business anymore. It's a difficult question to kind of say exactly who will be out there. But yeah, I don't deal with that a lot, but I do understand that is a good point in terms of making it clear that people have to understand that what is going to happen, and if you want to sell your business or retire, or if you just can't perform your business, is there somebody out there who may be willing to take it over, who's interested in buying your company at some point?
Thank you, Maurice Redd. What a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
If there are no more questions, we've answered them all. We're going to go on to our next panelist. And that is Fred Lundquist. I'm going to read his bio right quick. Fred Lundquist. His areas of expertise are commercial real estate, industrial, professional services, acquisitions, succession plans, municipalities, cash management. He has years of experience with more than a decade of banking experience. Greg is an accomplished banker and an outstanding lender with the Blackhawk Bank organization. His clients reap the benefits of his deep commitment to developing and strengthening relationships, his wealth of knowledge, and his strong ties to the community. Greg is responsible for identifying, developing, and marketing business solutions and fostering a high level of client satisfaction. He serves as a key member of the client relationship team. Certifications and awards. Greg is a graduate of both the Commercial School of Banking and Rockford Leadership Academy. Greg was recognized as one of the area's 40 leaders under 40 in 2019. Volunteer efforts. Wholly committed to his community, Greg has served as president of Ignite, Rockford Chamber of Young Professionals Group. He is chairman of the Walter Larson's Children Play Day and participates in United Way activities. In addition, he is a member of the Rockford Chamber of Commerce, the Rockford Cosmopolitan Club, and the Beloit Club and the Giuseppe Verdi Society. Hobbies and interests. In his free time, Greg and his wife chase after their twin toddlers. Other times he can be found on the golf course, hunting or fishing. Fun fact, Greg was born on Leap Day. He is, according to his number of birthdays, the youngest employee at the bank, just turning 10 years old.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you everybody for having me this evening. Truly is an honor to present to this group, and just a real privilege. So Blackhawk Bank, a little bit of background about us. Actually chartered in 1881, and we're actually headquartered out of Beloit, but we are a community bank. So we stretch all the way, we have branches all the way from Janesville, kind of stretching along the I-90 corridor, and then we just recently ventured out east and have established 3 more branches in McHenry County. So a little bit about what I do. On my title, it says business banker, but in all reality, I'm really a relationship manager. And that's actually what we refer to one another as within the building, within our department. Commercial lending is just that, it's a relationship. So it's unlike any other sort of lending in a sense. When you go to buy a house or you go to buy a car, you get your loan and you're done with it. As long as you make your payments and everything else, you don't really hear from anybody ever again. Commercial lending is a different story. Commercial lending is, you know, if I'm giving somebody a loan, I'm meeting with that person probably quarterly, and we're kind of going through and talking about what's going on within their business, looking at numbers, looking at financials, giving them insights as far as what we're seeing within their particular industry. And then also, you know, managing the risk. Commercial and obviously lending in general is a risk-based business. And obviously we have to keep an eye on it because we're lending out depositor money. So to make sure that, you know, there's a high likelihood that it'll get repaid, one, or number two, if we are having some issues, okay, what can we do to help these folks out in you know, what's kind of a plan of attack to kind of right the ship, so to speak. So one of the things that I think there's not enough of, and which I was glad to be a part of this evening, is just the educational piece. So a lot of people want to start their own business and do their own thing, and it's admirable, and more people should do it. But the biggest question is, okay, how do I start? Where do I start? How do I do it? It's going to be too difficult. So really nice job of establishing the panelists this evening. I can't say enough for Edward and Mike with the SBDC in the sense that they really do a good job in helping people kind of prepare for that initial, okay, I think I'm ready. I want to take that next step, but what do I do? In establishing a business plan is probably the most important thing that you can do, because it's going to address all the things that I look at in order to be able to lend money. So in terms of lending, there's basically, for those of you who've gone through business school or taken some business classes, it still holds true. There's basically 5 C's that we look at when it comes to lending. And these are the things that we take a look at in making a credit decision. Pretty simple, and I'll kind of walk through them real quick this evening. So one is, you know, is obviously capacity. and that gets talked a lot more since 2009 within all facets of lending. Okay, capacity means, can you afford it on paper? And that's the biggest thing. So nowadays, from a lending perspective, no different than with a mortgage, I have to show that you have to that you can repay the loan. I can't give you a loan that's going to put you in a worse spot than you were in to start with. So that's kind of starting. And then, you know, what are we looking at for capital? And by capital, I mean, what sort of down payment do you have? You know, in business lending, they do require, you know, in almost all instances, you know, if you're purchasing a building, you know, there's required cash down requirements. And so where is that coming from? Now, it doesn't have to come from your own pocket necessarily. I mean, there's a variety of different programs out there. Edward actually highlighted on some of those things. And also from a community standpoint, I know there's other programs out there in terms of grants and things of that sort to help you there. So if you don't have all the money in the account, you know, presently.
But certainly, I think whenever you're marginalized or whenever you're just part of a group that is
anybody else hearing that in the background? Okay, it's muted now. So yeah, there's ways to come up with down payments and things of that sort. Other things that we look at, obviously the collateral. What are you purchasing? What are you buying? You know, I'll tell you right now, and it kind of goes in with conditions, you know, commercial real estate right now is a very tough market. If you're looking at things like, you know, if somebody was coming to me today and was asking to purchase a strip mall, it would probably be a little bit tougher just from the standpoint of, you know, how many people in this pandemic are really going out and going to strip malls? Prior to that, how many people were going to box stores or things of that sort? With the advent of Amazon and some of the other online retailers, those things have struggled. So in terms of the collateral and the conditions, that's something else that we look at. And probably the most important thing I would say is probably character. And that's where the relationship comes in. So character is, you know, if I, you know, no different than any other sort of lending. I mean, what is the likelihood that we'll get repaid? A lot of times what folks will use, and it's used, you probably track it and see it on different devices. Now it's a lot easier to see, but credit score is used to dictate that. So your credit score is a fair indication of the likelihood that that any entity, regardless of it, is going to get paid. So, you know, other things that make it tough from a collateral standpoint is just not having the capital or collateral to start with. So we do partner and we do offer programs besides traditional, you know, commercial lending. You know, the SBA, Small Business Administration, has loans out there that help banks mitigate that collateral risk. So the SBA will come in and they'll guarantee a certain portion of that piece of collateral or that business to help the bank offset that risk and to make the likelihood of you obtaining that loan a lot greater than what it would have been because you didn't have that. So obviously the toughest thing getting started out is just usually, you know, you're just getting started. You don't have a lot of those assets, collateral or capital. So other things from a standpoint of loans, really two basic loans in commercial lending. You're familiar with them. It's just a different type of loan. There's open-ended, you know, lines of credit that are out there that can support everything, anything from, you know, just simple day-to-day purchases to helping to support accounts receivable. So, you know, let's say you're a contractor and you work on a job and you pay yourself and employees, but you know, the general contractor that you're working for doesn't have a draw for 2 months. How do you pay those folks? How do you pay yourself? How do you keep going? line of credit kind of supported by your accounts receivable is something that we would utilize to help get you through. And then, of course, a close-ended or term loan, no different than a car loan or a home loan, in which you know, you have a fixed amount of payments over a fixed amount of time, and then it's paid off. So a number of different things. I can't reiterate enough. I mean, obviously the key to it, and I think, you know, in talking to Elmo going into this, the most important thing is to kind of surround yourself with a group of folks that you trust, and that will help you. So obviously, like on this call, Mr. Redd, mitigating your liabilities or your risks that can occur within you know, day-to-day operations. You know, an unforeseen thing that happens there could easily take down a business, and we've seen it take down a business before. You know, having an attorney to consult, having a good CPA, obviously having a bank and a banker that has your back. I work for a community. I started my banking career working for much larger banks, and I progressed down over the years in working for a community bank. For probably the biggest reason is because they truly care about the community. I've been in it enough to see that your business could be doing well and prospering, but if I've seen where big banks will come in and make sweeping changes and say, you know what, we really don't want to be manufacturing in Rockford right now just because there's too much risk. That manufacturer could be doing just fine, but because of the type of business it is, and because of the type of risk that it presents, a lot of times you could see instances in where they get forced out of a bank and have to find a new bank. So community bank, obviously we care about what goes on in Rockford. So manufacturing in Rockford, professional services in Rockford, things of that sort we care about. And even if, and like we're seeing right now, especially with the epidemic, with the pandemic, and even before this, I mean, going into it, we had some softening in the last half of 2019. We're going to be there for our customers as long as, you know, folks have their arms wrapped around their numbers and they have good management. We're going to back them. So that's probably, you know, one of the biggest differences between a community bank as opposed to a large national. So with that, I don't really have any slideshow. I'll open it up for any questions that you may have, and by all means, after the presentation, if you have further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
This is Elmo.
Yes, sir.
Can you address the development of the relationship with the banker prior to needing the loan? You know, how do you determine, and I sent you this question, how do you determine that the banker, as part of your team, has your best interest has your best interest instead of the transaction's best interest?
Sure.
As part of the relationship.
Yeah, good question, Elmo. Really, from that standpoint, I mean, as I kind of alluded to, relationship manager or relationship management, it is a relationship at the end of the day, and that's where you do want to sit down and just as you
have to unmute. We can hear you.
Just as you would. Can you hear me now? I thought I was freezing. Sorry, but it is a relationship. So, I mean, just as you would interview a potential employee, as a business owner, you want to interview your banker and have a relationship with them, get to know them. You know, I mean, if you're just starting out the business, you know, going through some of those things, maybe going through a business plan, kind of getting their feedback. And honestly, in the beginning phases of it, maybe you get together with that core group, as I kind of alluded to, in terms of, you know, getting together with an attorney, with the attorney you're looking to use, a CPA, the banker, your insurance representative, and because that's the team that's going to kind of carry you through. And so, to your point, Elmo, it's something that you really do want to feel comfortable with. But I think a lot of that comfort is both, you know, the banker's always going to, you know, especially from a community banking standpoint, you know, my job is a liaison between the customer and the bank, and really kind of view it to see my success relies on my customer success. So, you know, if I could help them, you know, that's really where at the end of the day, where I feel good about it.
We have a question from Chris Lewis. Will Blackhawk Bank do factoring or account receivable financing?
Absolutely. Yeah, all the time. Account receivables is one of the biggest things. Mr. Lewis, as I kind of alluded to a little while ago, I mean, if you got somebody stretching you out 60 to 90 days on your payable to come into you, how do you keep things going? And that's through a line of credit. And so we will do that based upon accounts receivables. Now, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but since you asked, if you're looking for kind of a number that we would look at or lend upon, is we would take your receivables that are, you know, depending upon what your terms are, but typically it's 90 days or less, what you have projected coming in, and we would lend on 75% of that. So, and I'm just using real round numbers here. So conceivably, if you have $1 million in receivables coming in, you know, 75% of that would be, you know, conceivably you could have a line of credit for $750,000. Now with that, the other caveat is in doing that, typically once we get above $75,000 to $100,000 in terms of that sort of lending, that's usually when we're starting to get what's called a borrowing base every month. So what that is we're monitoring, we're monitoring receivables and making sure that you're in what's called borrowing base. So if I've given you $750,000 towards your line, but our receivables drop to $500,000, that could present a risk to the bank. We'd want to make sure that if your receivables were at $500,000, that your line is you know, not being utilized past that 75% mark. So a little bit more monitoring there, a little bit more interaction with myself or whoever your banker would be, but certainly is doable and certainly is a way to help businesses grow.
One more question. Jason Williams asks, if you're looking to purchase commercial residential property, what is your suggested down payment? He heard that it was 20%. What is your professional suggestion?
Sure. Kind of depends upon the type of property, right? And I'm not going to steal her thunder. I know she's listening in, and she'll speak to it tomorrow. But a lot of it depends upon the type of property. So really, from a 1 to 4 family, so 1 to 4 units, and if it's your first property, might make a lot more sense to go with more residential mortgage loan in that regard. Reason being is within a residential mortgage, typically you're going to get a little bit lower rate, and you're going to get a little bit longer term. And the reason for that being is that they're typically backed by, you know, a much larger entity like a Fannie Mae. Now, if you're getting into something bigger, where anything above 4 units, 5 units to, you know, you name it, as far as how many, then you would have to go with something in a commercial route. And in my world, you know, we would look for 25% down in that instance. So, you know, as you start to get up there in terms of the amount of doors that you have in that particular property, so goes the level of risk within that particular loan. And that's why you typically don't see a large servicer like Fannie Mae doing something like that. But from a commercial world, and I'm sure Margie will, I'll let Margie speak to the mortgage side when she does her presentation in the next episode. But yeah, it would be 25%.
If I could ask a quick question, Greg,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who attend and who are attending today, and maybe some people who will watch the recording who aren't established businesses. They are more on the startup end of the business life cycle. Do you have any products that would support those type of businesses, or if so, maybe it's not specific to you, but where should businesses go who are startups looking for access to capital?
I mean, if you're just starting up, just ground floor, hey, I want to, I'm done working for somebody else. I want to do my own thing. I mean, I'll say it again. I mean, you got to probably start with maybe going through Edward's group, Edward and Mike's group with the SBDC. Once they get through that, because they're going to give them a lot of the things that I'm already looking for in terms of a business plan. But in terms of the actual products, Tim, a lot of times what we're going to do is probably look at an SBA related loan, which is the Small Business Administration. And then depending upon the type of loan that we're doing, or depending upon the type of business, could depend upon the structure there. But, they have some things out there. And I was looking just recently, I had a business owner that was looking to buy a commercial property that they'd been leasing. And so, but their biggest problem with it, it was industrial. Their biggest problem with it is, hey, I don't have 25% to come in with on this piece of property. So in that case, there was a couple of options. One was actually, through the SBA, they allow them a 10% down option. Well, 10% as opposed to 25% is a lot of money when you're just getting started within something. So that's kind of to kind of give you an idea or a difference. And then also locally here too, which they do a really good job, is the Rockford Local Development Corporation. And they also have some things that they offer in terms of grants, and as well as some, they do, I believe there's some community loans that they offer as well to help kind of bridge that gap from a capital standpoint.
We have one more question from Chris Lewis again. So if you're staying in the real estate investment range of 2 to 4 units, what are the rates for deals after the first one?
And I'm going back to my, that probably more on the lines of mortgage, more the conventional mortgage. And I'll tell you, I mean, if you're looking at it, and you have to go through, a qualification, so to actually quote a rate. But I mean, if you're looking at what you would get as an owner occupied property, so I think I was reading something today. I mean, a 30-year mortgage, if you have good credit and equity in the property, is somewhere around 3%, in the 3% range, low 3s. I think conceivably, if you're talking investment, because of the risk and it's not owner occupied, it's probably safe to say that it's probably, probably a point and a half higher because of that risk in terms of the rate. But when you're looking at it, even at that, so you're saying, okay, I have a piece of investment property that I've just financed for 30 years at a fixed rate of 4.5%, we'll say. If you have 4 doors on it, or even 2 doors, depending upon, what your rent is, it should help you cash flow pretty easily in that particular property.
And again, Margie, explain that one again next week.
Correct.
I don't have any other questions. Our next presenter is Jonathan Bell. And I will go ahead and read his bio for us. Jonathan Bell, 48, is the Community and Economic Development Procurement Coordinator for the City of Rockford. Jonathan comes to this post with years of experience in the private sector, and most recently the nonprofit sector, where he has gained extensive insight to economic development for small businesses He is a graduate of Russ College and is currently finishing up work at Northern Illinois University to earn a master's in public administration degree. Before joining the city of Rockford, Jonathan was the executive director of Providence Community Development Corporation, where he led the organization to fiscal solvency and acquired a portfolio of properties which allows the organization to provide safe, affordable housing in the Rockford area. Additionally, Jonathan currently owns and operates an online retail establishment, which is a regional supplier of hygiene products to a local consumer base. Father of 3 and married 18 years, Jonathan enjoys spending weekends traveling, camping, mentoring, and fitness activities. There you go, Jonathan. Bill.
All right. Thank you all. I first want to start off by saying thank you to Mr. Dow and the coordinators of this event. It's a privilege and honor to be with you, and I really thank you for inviting me. Some of the panelists I work with pretty closely, Matt and Edward, and it's always a pleasure to do so. I'm going to speak extemporaneously. I don't have slides ready, but there's an area that I like to tackle here and kind of tie some things into what I do here at the city. There's been a lot of discussion here, a lot of good information, a lot of good points that have been discussed here. There was talk on legal structure, very important. There was talk about business planning, so essential to a business. There was discussion on risk management, highly important. And just before me, there was a discussion on lending. All of these are so incredibly important issues. The one area that I want to talk about for a few minutes, my presentation will be brief, is the emotional side of business. Now, I don't know the makeup of our audience, but I want to speak to those who are considering going into business or making that investment of their time and money and energy, and whether or not they think it's right for them. The emotional side to business is so incredibly important. I would probably say equally important to all of the other issues that has been talked about today. The thing that I'm reminded of is 1997. Don't want to date myself too much. 1997. I was just out of college. I was very energetic, eager to go into the marketplace. My dad had ran a business, a tax accounting service for many years. So I had that business mindset from my dad. And I got married early, started working for another agency. I was living in Memphis, Tennessee at the time. And I wasn't satisfied working for somebody else. I really felt this burning desire to start my own business. And I did. I started, of all types of businesses, a grocery delivery service called Amgrocar. It was a weird name, and it was a weird concept at the time in 1997. I put a lot of time and energy into that. And a lot of the things that we talked about, legal structure, business planning, risk management, and lending, I knew nothing about. And it was like another language to me. And so I went through that whole experience only to have a lot of my savings and my first marriage dissolve. It went south, as we talked about before, and I was crushed. And this is one of the things that we have to talk about when we're talking about going into business. And that is the emotional toll that we have to take into consideration. There is an emotional toll. I always tell people who are wanting to go into business, you know, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. I took that step. But what happens when you stumble? Some people get afraid. Some people want to stop. Some people want to turn the other direction. Some people feel like it's not worth it. One of the things that you have to look at emotionally is, do you have the determination to see your vision, your idea through to the end? Although I had a failure with that first business, I was devastated in the beginning. And so time passed. Fast forward a couple of years, I moved back to Rockford and I wanted to try it again. I really felt like I had something that I can develop. And so I tried it again at beginning, starting another business. And it was a records management business. And this was in 2008. So in my second venture, I really put a lot of time and energy and effort into this new venture, which I thought was a sure thing. I really believed in my idea and my business plan. But conditions were not right, because in 2008 is when we hit a really major recession, something unplanned, something unwanted, something it came out of nowhere. And after struggling through that for some years, I had to finally close my doors and go out of business. Again, it was a devastating toll on me because of so much time and energy and money that I put into that venture. I tell that story because there are going to be failures and there are going to be setbacks, and you as the business owner have to give yourself permission to fail. I had to learn that. You really do have to give your permission to fail. Failure is not a bad thing. Failures are lessons to be learned, so that when you look at all of the steps that you've taken or steps that you have not taken, you begin to become a student of business. And that's really important. You really have to learn what it really takes to become a business owner. And it's not just having a good idea. You need to learn the language of business. You need to understand cash flow and receivables and your business expenses. You need to understand many of the things that we talked about: the legal structure, the business planning and risk management and lending. What's most important is you have to have a determination to not just have a good idea, but have a mindset to be a business owner who understands their entire operation. I recently worked with a young lady who wanted to go into business. And when I asked her about the different aspects of her business, her response to me was, "I have a lawyer. That person will take care of it." When I asked her about some other things, she said, "I have a lawyer. My lawyer will take care of that." After some discussion, I think I helped her to understand that there is a responsibility for you, the business owner, to know your business, to know your market, to know the demographics, to know your competitors, to understand cash flow, to understand those intricate details about your business that's going to make it become successful. It is not enough to just have the idea, but you got to study, become a student of your craft so that you understand all of the dynamics that are involved with your business. I learn from my mistakes, and that's most important. I learn from my failures. And from those experiences, I was able to harness the power of the internet, found a market that had a big need. I observed where there were some gaps in some delivery, and I created a business that today is doing quite well for me. And so the position that I have here at the city really gives me an opportunity to reach out and work with other small business owners who are just starting for the first time, or they've started, they're struggling, they want to expand, but they need a little bit of direction. There's been talk on our program here about business first. So at the city of Rockford, we have this phenomenal program for business owners, for those entrepreneurs who want to go into business. You don't have to go it alone. In the city of Rockford, we have a fabulous program that I work with Ed and some others with the Small Business Development Center, where small business owners, entrepreneurs, set up an appointment to come sit down with all of the department heads that would have some sort of input on that business and its location that they're planning for in the city of Rockford. So you were talking with people from building, construction, planning, permitting, zoning, the water reclamation district, as well as the health department. You're talking to people with Metro Tax. Here in Rockford, and this is where a lot of business owners who are in the food and beverage sector, whether you want to open a restaurant, many business owners or people who are wanting to open a restaurant don't know about the Metro Tax that we have in the city of Rockford. When you come to business first, you learn about those details about taxation and zoning and permitting that you need to know before you make that initial investment, before you sign a lease, or before you purchase a property. It is important that business owners know everything they need to know about a property that they're about to sign a lease for or purchase, so that they don't get stuck with an even higher investment that's going to be required because it must satisfy some regulatory requirements. And so one must be determined to be able to learn about the different aspects of going into business, but understand that it takes a lot of determination to see through the setbacks, the pitfalls, the lows that come with being in business. You have to be determined to move forward and get past those difficult moments, and there will be some challenging times. I would say, secondly, you must be disciplined. That's so important. You must be disciplined. When I say discipline, what comes to mind is there was another business owner that I was working with. They opened up a convenience store here in town. They're a first-time business owner. They were enthusiastic about their idea. They finally opened us a store. And I maintained relationship with them, but every time I would travel by the store, it was closed. And I did it a couple of times. Sometimes it was open and sometimes it was closed. Well, as a business owner, there's got to be a level of discipline that you have to your business operation. That when you say you're open, you're going to be open. And when you have customers come through your door, you're given the best customer service you can possibly give. That when you are managing your finances, you must set a budget. And you must stick to that budget in order for your operation to sustain itself. And so I would say the second thing that is so incredibly important on the emotional side of being in business is you must have a level of discipline to ensure that your business survives the tough times. And then lastly, when we have business hiccups or setbacks or difficulties, or we run out of cash, or we have a loss, or we're on the verge of not being able to move forward or expand like we want to, I would say you've got to have a level of dedication. Dedication is important as a small business owner because it helps you to see through all of the fog and be able to move forward. Dedication just simply means that no matter what comes, I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to be mentored, I'm willing to learn about my market, I'm willing to hear from my customers. You've got to be dedicated to doing what you do and understand that that dedication is going to require some time, some energy, some effort that is unmatched in when you're unlike being a business owner. And so having that determination, being disciplined, and maintaining that level of dedication, I think is really important. Here at the City of Rockford, I act as a small business liaison. I basically work with small business owners who are looking to start a business or expand a business. We talk about some of those intricate details, the planning, and I connect them with resources and tools here in the City of Rockford. Business First is one of those tools that I think is highly effective in learning about what the different stakeholders in the city, the regulatory bodies in the city have to say about a particular property, but also connecting people with the Small Business Administration or the Small Business Development Center with that Ed and Mike are a part of, so that they can work with them in developing the business plan and think through all of the different technical aspects of that business, so that when you do go to the bank or when you do look for a grant opportunity, you understand your business inside and out. And that is so essential. You can't leave it to somebody else. You can't leave it to your lawyers. You can't leave you can't leave it to other entities to know your business inside and out. And that's one of the things that is going to help make you successful. I'm not saying go it alone. I'm saying understand the dynamics of business, surround yourself with the technical experts that you need to be successful, but understand that there's an emotional component to being in business that is so essential and can't be ignored as you're pursuing your business venture. And so that's all that I have for a presentation. There's been a lot of great discussion, and I don't want to redo or go over some of the topics that have been discussed. I think all of the discussions have been absolutely fabulous. Look forward to the others. I thank those who, Elmo, for allowing me to come on and share some of my thoughts. And with that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
Right now, we don't have any questions. I would like to thank you and give the stage over to Brother Elmo for final comments.
Well, thanks again for to the presenters that took their time out of their day to present to master builders and our community on job creation. Whether it's one job or 100 jobs, it's job creation. And it's important within our community within our brotherhood that we look at job creation as part of bettering our community. You know, as we have, our emphasis is that it takes a team, and you have to identify that team and all the components of that team to lead you down that road to success. Today we heard from very learned folks. There are programs out there. There are people out there that's willing to help us all in that quest to become that independent person, become that addition to our community to add jobs and to better ourselves and create a legacy that our children can have, our family can have. With that, again, I appreciate all of you taking time. And this recording will be available and at some point where folks can access it again. I've asked all of the presenters to send me their information, and we will post that information so that people can get in touch with folks and if they've got further questions. With that, I'm going to give you to the worship master so we can close this out at 7 o'clock.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you again, all our panelists. What a wonderful job. Thank you for all our attendees and everybody that asked these wonderful questions. I hope that everything that the panelists said will help further your endeavors. And I hope that you join us next week where we'll have even more panelists and great info for you to continue your endeavors. You all have a good night and come back with us next week.
Thank you.